Hello everybody, welcome back to the Simply 3D Prints channel. Today, this is something I kind of wanted to do for a bit, and so today we'll be doing something that I'm going to be calling lore videos. Lore videos are basically different videos that I'll be doing that will just go into kind of the depth of the lore of Mythica and the stories and so on. I'll probably read the stories or that we've written or so on to go a bit more in depth. This is more of like kind of dissected a bit of the lore of how things are going. So today we'll be going through the first story, The Hunt Begins, part 1, which is the first, which is part 1 of the first kind of 5-story arc. The third story is coming out, or not Thursday, sorry. We have 5 stories in this first arc, and then the next arc, which is already out, which we have 2 of them out, the third will be coming out pretty soon, is almost done. But yeah, so this is kind of how it is. So this is the first story, so without further ado, let's get into it. So I'm just kind of going to go part by part, and then kind of go into then what kind of about that. So, and this is also my first main story, so if there's anything that like sounds weird or so on, then you can put in the comments or so on and tell me. I'm still kind of learning with these stories, so I'm learning as I go, which is nice. So, we'll start out with this. The Hunt Begins, Part 1. The rocks fell away from the entrance, revealing a massive cavern. Arena had been hacking at the entrance with her pickaxe for nearly 3 hours, while her friend Miana, a crystal dragon, stood watch at the cave's opening. So first thing, the crystal dragon is one of our dragons. Here, they look something like this. Their abilities generally are, they have abilities with crystal and so on. They have some telepathic abilities related to crystal. Things, I'll go more in detail about the different dragons and their abilities in a different lore video, but this is just kind of the type of dragon that Miana is. Arena put her pickaxe down and leaned it up against the rock wall and wiped sweat from her brow. Miana, come look! Miana turned her head. What is it, she asked. I found it, Arena responded, gesturing to the newly revealed opening, and it looks like the right one. She and Miana had been searching for the imagined treasure, a treasure that had been in existence ever since Mythica was formed. This treasure was rumored to hold the secrets of Mythica and the key to unlocking the secrets of the imagination. Arena and Miana had been sent out to search for this treasure in hopes of learning more about the world and abilities. And this is, now that I read this, I realize this is partially true. There's also another reason that I didn't describe on this, and that's about the this force called the Antis, which are trying to conquer and destroy, or not destroy Mythica, but conquer Mythica and suppress imagination. So yeah, there's a lot of kind of lore within this imagined treasure that I won't reveal right now, but will be done later on as the story goes on. Come on, Arena yelled. Let's go in. Miana followed Arena into the cavern. Inside, there were glittering jewels, piles of gold ingots, and rows upon rows of beautiful gold statues. But in the middle of it all stood a pedestal with a scroll bathed in a warm light that glowed with importance and power. Arena instantly knew this is what they were trying to find. She walked slowly toward the pedestal. The closer she got, the more certain she was that this was the key. The answer the Imagineer Council was looking for. Arena thought she heard Miana calling out for her, but it was far away and faint. She suddenly found herself directly in front of the pedestal and scroll. She reached her hands towards the scroll, and suddenly there was a flash of white, and reality came back to her, and she had the scroll in her hand. But before she could open it, she was knocked to the ground. The scroll flew out of her hand, and she landed with a hard smack on the cold, rocky ground. She rolled around just in time to dodge a punch that smashed into the earth next to her. It shook the whole cavern, and dust drifted down from the ceiling. That's when Arena heard the screaming. She turned to find Miana being attacked by 6 cloaked figures, lashing her with what looked to be glowing ropes. However, whenever they touched Miana, she screamed in pain. Her thoughts went back to her attacker, Arena's thoughts. Another punch was winding up. Arena imagined that a shield was around her just as the punch came down. It connected her invisible shield with a loud crackle. This gave her enough time to imagine she had a staff. and appeared in her hand, and she struck out at the attacker. It connected with her attacker, and as it connected with their attacker, they were thrown off balance. Irina managed to get up in time to land a sidekick in the attacker's midsection, knocking them down. She then ran towards Miana, spinning her staff, imagining ice spiraling from it. She thought that she threw the staff at the attacker. It spun in a wide arc directly towards Miana's attackers. But instead of knocking them down and freezing them, it vanished. Irina stared. What, she thought? Before she could figure out what had happened, one of the 6 attackers noticed her and yelled. By this time, Miana was on the ground unconscious. While the remaining attackers tied Miana up, the one who had noticed her began running towards Irina. She quickly imagined herself to be invisible, vanishing before the rushing attackers' eyes. Irina ran towards Miana's attackers, grabbing a rock from the ground. She pulled her arm back, imagined as much force she could behind the throw. When pain suddenly shot through her body, all of her imagining stopped. She fell to the ground, succumbing to unconsciousness. So that's the end of the first story. It's shorter than most of the other ones that came after. I wrote more length and added more detail to it. But I wanted to point out a couple of things. First of all, she gets attacked by the Antis, which shouldn't be too big of a surprise. You kind of learned about that earlier in the next story, and that's kind of the whole point of this. It's not a spoiler because that's the whole kind of plot with Mythica. This conflict between the Imagined Council and the Imagineers versus the Antis. Which that's another thing that we can get into later in another video. But specifically in here then, you have Niana, which is obviously her dragon. And this is kind of a bit of a point, or one thing I want to first get at is Irina was known as Imagined Weaver. And they have the ability to imagine things into existence. Via some specific rules, of course, but generally it's the idea that Mythica is a world of imagination. And as such, you can, certain people have the ability to directly influence the world via their imagination. So Imagined Weavers have this capability to weave figments into reality. Figments are basically like the figments of ideas or thoughts or imagination creations that exist when somebody thinks or imagines something. Figments are more concrete than just a thought. It's kind of the next step, but it's still like just the basic. It's like a shadow of the person, and they could develop this and turn it into whatever they were thinking about. So, for example, if Imagined Weaver could could turn a shadow like the figment of a dragon into an actual dragon, though it won't be real. In terms of it's not like a physical being that suddenly comes into shape and form. It's more of like like they summoned it and now they can control it and so on. So that's what's called weaving, Imagined Weaving. It's called Imagining the Story, but after the story I kind of have tightened up some of the thoughts and made it easier to understand what is specifically happening. So that's kind of what she's doing. She can imagine different things into existence and use that to her advantage. There is a downside, however. The basic idea is you can't imagine the less you have of something. So if you need a weapon but don't have a weapon, the harder it is to imagine it. So in this case, it's not described, but she had a figment of a staff. Figments are kind of like the shadow, as I said, but they're more real and give kind of they're more real, and they allow the ease to solidify those figments into actual creations. So in this case, if you have a figment of a staff, you can turn it into a staff very easy with very little energy. If you don't have a figment of a staff, then turning that into a staff creating a staff is much harder and costs more energy, and you'll be exhausted much faster. So that's why she could imagine these different things, because she had figments. So that's kind of the general idea of the story. And then obviously here Miana goes on the ground unconscious, and then she gets knocked out and goes unconscious at the end of the story. So that is the end of today's lore video. This video's lore video. I will be doing more of these as time goes on with different aspects of the lore. Because this is probably one of my favorite parts of writing is the actual world building. But thank you for watching, and if you have any questions, comments, put them in the comments below, or you can send us an email at simply3dprints@gmail.com. If you want to purchase any of these creatures, we have an Etsy site that you can go to. The link will be in the description. And we'll see you next time.